In today's show, we're going to feature Heather Nakama. So I met Heather during our time together as software engineers at Microsoft. And this episode, I want you to pay attention to three really interesting things. The first one was how Heather went from a religious studies major to discover her interest in technology. I think there's just such a fascinating story behind this because the two things are so different. The second thing is she talks about how she uses her work as a tool for self improvement, especially in the area of human relationships. Again, two seemingly very different things that somehow share something in common. And the third thing is just notice how much passion she has when she talks about technology. In fact, hearing Heather talk about how much she loves computers, distributed systems, all of that was one of the first things that made me realize how much I didn't actually care about software engineering and technology myself. You can you can really you can really see how much others and even yourself care about a topic by the way you talk about something. This is something that I think is very important that people often that it often goes unnoticed with people, where the way you talk about something really indicates how aligned what you're talking about is, what you want to do is, with what you actually desire and want to do deep down. So, with that out of the way, please enjoy the show. Hello, hello. So I'm really excited to welcome Heather. Heather is my friend from actually many, many years now, I believe. And currently she is a tech lead at Google who has a passion for building scalable, reliable, and fault tolerant distributed systems. She is I consider her to be anyway, a lifelong learner with a knack for seeing relationships and analogies between different topics and multiple areas of life. And lately, she's been exploring how tech can teach us a lot about our own psychology and human relationships. What I love about Heather is like the fact that she's able to just like find learnings in one area of life and then like extrapolate that and apply it to like something that one would think is completely different. Especially like technology and how it applies to human relationships. Like I've never met somebody who like saw that before. Um, and this like being able to learn from one area and adapt it to a different area really is the learning by living part of our podcast title. And so I'm just so excited to have Heather on here with us today.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so yeah, to kind of to get started, I I know you've. I'm really curious. First of all, what made you decide to go into tech? What spurred your love for tech? Because if I remember correctly, when we last spoke, you actually mentioned that you started as a religious studies major in college. Is that right?
Yeah, this is my origin story that people are oftentimes really weirded out to hear because I'm so gung ho and passionate now about tech. But um, I think it's mostly just me not knowing what I wanted to do with myself when I got to school at the first time for in college. I just kind of took a variety of classes. Originally, I wanted to be a biochemistry major, and I probably bailed out after my first experience with chemistry. And I think religion kind of caught just because I've always really liked religion. I'm an atheist, but I grew up in the church and I really enjoyed the experience. So I took the classes, and I think those were the ones that just spoke to me the most. I will say that by the time I was like a junior or senior, I knew that okay, this is sort of nothing I want to do with my life, but I just wanted to get my degree at that point. So
So was it just like a hey, you know what? I'm not really that. I don't find biochem really that fun and interesting. Religion sounds like something that is like it's very fascinating to me, and so why not? Were you like thinking at all about like what you were gonna do after university
uh,
when you made that?
no, clearly not. I was talking to Sean recently about. He was like, it was like, oh yeah, I was looking at average salaries and asked me if I did that. I'm like, no one who majored in religion has been looking at average salaries of the profession. So like, it was mostly just like, what am I the most interested in to study for the next 4 years is really what it was.
Oh my goodness. That's so interesting because I remember when I was in college, it was there was like everyone was thinking about like what am I going to do after college? Like how much money can I make with my degree and all of that, and it's just so it's so funny that you were like, nope, how I just want to get my college degree and do and enjoy my time here while I
My
can.
parents were surprisingly chill about it too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so my mom wanted to major. Actually, no, my mom did major in art, and so she was always really enthusiastic about me just doing whatever I wanted. And I'm also surprised that my dad wasn't asking me to do something more practical. But yeah, he was surprisingly supportive. They're both really, really supportive of it.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And such that's so refreshing to hear. Cuz I feel like at least a lot of the people that I've talked to that wasn't their norm in their upbringing. I'm very curious then. Okay, so what got you into tech then? Cuz that is so different.
Yeah, man. So it's this really crazy string of coincidences, honestly. And like I remember a while ago, I wrote it all out and just like feeling super lucky and grateful that I ended up where I am now. Yeah. So, I guess
Please
the brief
please share.
summary.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. So I got really into video games when I was in college, and I had this good group of friends that we'd play Halo twice a week for these long marathon sessions. And some of them recommended I try out coding. I think maybe I just played Halo in a very nerdy way. I don't know. So I played around with it, and I liked it. And I was like, well, that was a fun hobby. Okay, back to wondering what I'm going to do with my religion degree. And I had this weird mental block that it's like, okay, coding's fun, but it's not for someone like me to pick up. I just never even considered it as an option. And so I graduated, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with myself. I did get a minor in mathematics, so I was like, okay, maybe I'll become an actuary. And my Halo friends reached out and said, hey, like they're working at Microsoft, and they said there's an opening for a contractor role. Do you want to apply for it? And I was like, hell yeah, I do. I was working at Barnes and Noble with minimum wage at this point, so it was pretty exciting. So they said I should brush up on or learn Windows command line batch scripting because that's what the job would be about. So I did that, went to the interview, got hired, and I think within like a month I was like, oh yes, yes, computers and software are actually a very good career. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to learn how to code for real. I bought a book on C sharp, and I just started teaching myself how to code. And I begged for all the coding work I could get from like my friends and coworkers. But like overall, this is actually a super fun time of my life, I'd say, because it's like one, my salary just doubled, which is pretty awesome. No longer making minimum wage, and then two, like I really fell in love with coding like from the beginning, and it was just this really fun period of learning how to code, learning that I loved it, and I knew really early on this is what I wanted to do, and I learned about distributed systems early on, and even though I barely understood it, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I think like everything after that was just about getting closer to my eventual goal. So yeah, it was a really fun time in my life.
That's so funny, Heather. Like it's so funny that when like first of all you basically just like you know you were playing video games, it sounds like you know you were playing video games with your friends and then they were the ones who were like, hey, we think you'd probably be interested in this coding thing, and you did it and you really enjoyed it, and it didn't even occur to you at the time that you could that this could be a job option for you until
Yeah,
like
yeah.
later when I guess you were actually in the job search mode.
I think like looking back now, it's so obvious that it's a question of representation that
Mhm.
I had this mental block that this is something that only guys did. Even though
Mm.
I never said it to myself and no one ever told me you can't do it. I just didn't even think about it as an option until
Wow.
I got into it. Which is part of why I think like volunteering with kids and this kind of thing is super important so that people understand that, oh hey, like someone like me can do this.
That's that makes so much sense. Yeah, like nobody. Oh, I just to reiterate what you said, like nobody had to tell you, or nobody ever said to you. I'm assuming like, oh, this is what guys did, but it's it's very interesting that like it didn't at least at that time, even though it was fun, it didn't really register to you as a possible job option because you just didn't see a lot of women in it, right? So it was like like the dot connection almost didn't even happen
Yeah,
at that point,
it's so
right?
weird. Like in the same way, I
Huh.
don't. It's like yeah, I was just looking at, okay, like what can I study, and like I was looking at like religion and chemistry and all this stuff, but I'm just like computer science, okay, yeah, whatever, and I just completely ignored it. It's so weird looking back now how much I dismissed it.
Wow, 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 wow. And I think that that's really I'm really glad, by the way, that your friends like just basically kept like bugging you about it. Like, hey,
Oh,
and then even
like, yes, I'm super grateful. Like, there was no way in hell I would be here without like them recommending me, and then them like supporting me, and then also like my boyfriend at the time was like so supportive, because it's like
oh
I come in and I have no degree, and he's like, "Oh no, you're definitely super smart. Like, I have a computer science degree, but you're just as smart as these people." And
yeah.
also, I ask a lot of uh, like why questions when I'm learning a topic, and he was super patient with that as well.
Ah, I find that is really, really helpful when you have kind of like friends around you who are like really privy into what you're interested in, because sometimes like we don't know, right? Like I find that sometimes like we don't know exactly kind of like where our interests are and how many opportunities I think exists from that. Like looking back, I feel like my biggest life opportunities that I seized myself were actually triggered by somebody else saying it to me first. Like, "Hey, Lucy, you'd be good at blah," or like, "Wouldn't it be interesting if, that happens?" And um I think it's kind of fascinating that sometimes that's just like how things work out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the same thing for me, that without other people noticing things or suggesting things or supporting things, I definitely wouldn't have done a lot of the things that I have, for sure.
Yeah. And I wonder if like I feel like there's something to be said here about like showing yourself basically like um y- I don't I guess like some of like in some of the conversation I've had with other people, like people are like scared to kind of like show like what they're interested in, things like that. But I've been as I've been having more and more of these kinds of conversations, I've been finding that like the more we're like really expressive and kind of what we're into, the more like we get these basically like this help from other people who are like, "Hey, I see you like playing Halo." And you ask a lot of questions, Heather. Maybe you'd be interested in learning how this all works. And you
Yeah,
ask a lot of questions. That's one of the things I love about you.
yeah, yeah. I think right now I'm learning about electricity, and Sean is being super patient with all kinds of weird hypothetical questions I've been asking.
Well, maybe electrical engineering might be a possible thing.
As bad as I am about it, I don't think so.
So I wanted to kind of like go back. Okay, so you got your first internship and then you found out that like, hey, this is fun. I really like it and I'm making a lot of money, so that's awesome. And what led you to it how did you actually I'm very, very curious because I've met so many people who said that like who want to get into tech or data science or one of some kind of like engineering or data position, and then they're very they don't have a computer science background, let's say, and they are very um like they put a lot of pressure on themselves to get like really, really good before they like give themselves like a chance to apply. And I'm very curious, like um how did you like learn to code and then like get your way into these companies? I mean, eventually you're at Google now, but like I think your first big tech breakthrough was at Microsoft, right? So it's like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah, that's also part of the story. So, yeah, so the very first position was this contract position at Microsoft, barely even related to coding. I was just working on batch scripts and the like. And so I was learning to code on my own and doing a ton of private projects for fun. And I reached a point pretty early on, I think probably too early on, where I said, okay, I'm confident that I have the skills to get a job. So I was just spamming my resume out everywhere. And it turns out that if you have a religion degree and almost no experience, like no one is going to call you back. So I could not get any interviews. And I managed to meet an intern. So I was working as a contractor at Microsoft. I had like 2 or 3 year long contracts, and I met an intern, and he was telling me about his recruitment process. And I'm like, first of all, you got recruited. Like I've just been spamming my resume out. And so after talking to him, I realized that going back to school could be a way to get an interview more easily. And so I was looking into that. And then I happened to talk to one of my friends who was going for a PhD, and he said, don't go back to get an associate's, which is what I was going to do. He said, try a master's. So I looked around in Seattle, and there's a lot of really good evening degree programs that will let you do full time and go to school. So I applied and got into Seattle University for software engineering.
Mm.
And the first semester, they have all these remedial classes for things to refresh you on things you should have learned in your undergraduate. So I took all those, and I took a data structures and algorithms class. I'm like, thank God, because that's my first introduction to the topic. And then that's what allowed me to pass the interview for Microsoft. But yeah, I definitely the experience of passing out resumes when I was in SU compared to before, it was like night and day. Like I got so many callbacks comparatively. And then
Well,
yeah, and then that's
uh,
how I got into Microsoft internship, and that's where I met you.
yeah. And when you were spamming your resume everywhere and like nobody called back, what was going through your head at that time? Were you were you feeling doubt at any point, or was it just like, no, I'll figure something out?
I was definitely, I guess, doubt for sure. Like if you had told that Heather where I would end up even like 5 years later, I think I would never have believed it, because I think my ambitions were pretty low at that point. It's just like, well, one, I want to not be a contractor. I want to have a full time position, and then two, to have a job that required me to actually write code instead of like be code adjacent.
Yeah.
And so I think yeah, I was definitely feeling a little discouraged, but like on one hand, I really liked coding on my own, so that was pretty fun, and I was still making like double minimum wage, so that was pretty awesome. And so I think it's more a matter of I just like incrementally making progress. Like when I got a job that was like a little more technical, I was like, hooray, great, this is massive progress. And then like when I learned some new concept, like it felt like I was continually making progress. So I don't think I got discouraged at any point. It was just like, let's just find new ways to wiggle closer to my goal.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that like the fact that it wasn't for it sounded like for you it wasn't a like I get the I whether I get a software engineering job or I didn't. It was more like, did I make more progress than I did before, right? Like, am I getting closer? And as long as I'm getting closer, like I feel like I'm on the right track, and that kept your motivation up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that I've talked to who are trying to break into the field are in a worse position than I was, because I mean I did have a contractor job at Microsoft, and I was pretty confident I could continue to get similar jobs if I wanted them. So it's always easier to, I guess, make a change if you're already in a place that's pretty close to it. Like I wasn't trying to break into the industry; I was trying to just get better jobs within the industry.
Right, right. And that's kind of like the incremental kind of thing, that incremental change that you were doing, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then even so, like I knew pretty early on that I wanted to work in distributed systems. When I went for the internship, I put Azure on my application. I did not end up at Azure. I think I was a tester at Windows Embedded, which is pretty far from what I wanted. So then it's like still like kind of like wiggling closer. So like the first job was to like not be a tester, and then after
Yeah.
that it was to get a job near Azure. So I was working in like test tools for Azure, and
Uh-huh.
so then after that I found a role as an Azure developer, and I was like, yes, I've arrived. So
Wait, wait, wait. Okay, so when I met you, you were already working at Azure. I had no idea that you already had your eyes set on Azure, like from like the very beginning when you were looking to work at Microsoft. Like you knew already?
yeah, like I read some article about like cloud computing, and like I barely even knew what computing was, let alone cloud computing. And I just thought that was the coolest idea, and knew I wanted to work there.
Okay, I want to dig into why you think that's so cool, but first I just want to kind of like reiterate basically what you did, which is like you knew you wanted to do Azure because you already knew you like cloud computing. And so but you weren't like, okay, it's Azure or I fail. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna get into Microsoft, right? And then I'm gonna figure out how to get a little bit closer and closer and closer to that final destination. So I'm gonna go to like, and then you went to like test tools for Azure, and then finally you went into Azure. Now you're somewhere else, but it's like you and I remember when we met, you were in Azure, and you it seemed like you were having a really good time there. So that is I just really wanted to call that part out because I think a lot of people, especially when they just start job hunting, they're like, either I get it or I don't. And then like it's it's not necessarily um like that can be like a huge jump depending on where you're starting, right? And so like if you keep seeing like what are some ways I can kind of like inchworm my way closer and closer, um that that can not only be a motivator, but I think it's also like a good kind of like reality check. I
Yeah,
think for
and
people.
I said this before. I think it's also something I want to talk about later. But
Yeah.
I think I was really lucky in a way that I feel like I crashed and burned pretty hard, like around college time, and because of that, I felt like I feel like it gave me a huge sense of gratitude and humility. So it's like compared to what I was doing before, like having a minimum, like more than minimum wage job, just felt like an incredible gift, and compared to where I was before, like having a contract role felt like an incredible gift. So I think because I had lower expectations, like I was super grateful for every little bit of progress that I made.
What okay, can you talk more about what happened when you mentioned you crashed and burned during college? What happened?
Oh yeah, so let's see. My first year in college, I went to this small liberal arts women's college on the East Coast, and then didn't I just didn't really like it. It didn't work out, so I quit halfway through my sophomore year. And then I was just sort of like bumming around in Seattle. And then I was like, well, I should probably finish school. So then I applied to University of Washington, and that's around the time where it's like, okay, I don't know if I want to do this religion thing, but I really wanted to get my degree. Um, and so I don't know, like for the long, I definitely felt like really behind, like I was just like working as a waitress and trying to figure out what to do. And then I graduated and I was working at Barnes and Noble, and I had this religion degree, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? So like compared to that, having like, being in a place where I knew what I wanted and something that I thought I was good at and something that I was visibly making progress at, it just felt like a massive, massive gift to me. I was like super grateful for that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the gift of clarity.
Clarity and also not let's see clarity and like in getting my degree was pretty great because I think after I dropped out of school the first time, I think like a lot of people were pretty like skeptical about like what the hell am I gonna am I doing, you know.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it was like clarity, and then just like yeah, feeling like I was making progress and like doing better every month than I was the previous month.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, it sounds like you had a good like motivating factor behind that. It's like you don't want to get back to that crash and burn point, right?
Yeah. I guess like I mean it wasn't that bad, but yeah, it definitely it just definitely taught me a lot of humility. I think like humility,
Mm.
and then it gave me gratitude for other things that I might not have been grateful for.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so why are you so passionate about distributed systems?
Ah, yeah.
I've not met anybody who's as passionate about, or I met people who are interested in it in all sorts of tech things. Like they have a lot to say, but you speak of it with an emotion that I don't often see. Like a type of emotion, like the way people talk about like their dog. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
what's
like
why are you so passionate about it? What drew you to
whenever
it?
I'm at
Yeah.
like parties and I've had a few too much to drink, like I start like talking really emotionally about how much I love systems. I think most people have heard me do this. Um, Yeah, I think at the core of it, I just really love the idea that you can build a reliable system from unreliable parts. I think the idea of it is really really beautiful, and it gives me hope for so many other things that are imperfect but can be incorporated into something that is bigger than the sum of their parts. And then I think a lot of the algorithms and protocols that go into building these systems are just incredibly elegant. I think the way that they approach all the possible situations and the possible states, I say it's a really like pleasing and elegant setup that just brings me a lot of joy whenever I look at it and think about it.
Oh, wow. That was like a very poetic way of saying that,
I
Heather.
feel like systems are very poetic, so it's very appropriate.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, building reliable system from unreliable parts. Can you give an example?
Yeah, let's see. Well, so most of the commercial cloud services have some SLA, you know, like three nines or five nines or whatever. And um, the way that they do this is from decomposing themselves from parts that are themselves not that reliable. And when I first knew this happened, and like I remember at my first job at Azure, and like some machine had just crashed, and my boss was like, "Well, yeah, like of course it's going to crash. Like that's what machines do." And I was like, "Hang on, like how in the world can we offer this SLA to our customers and back it with like saying we'll give you money if we miss our SLA, when you just told me that this machine that hosts their service is like crashing, and that's fine because that's what machines do. And then like from there learning that, okay, no, this is why we have things called replication and failover and protocols that can handle this. And just like, yeah, learning these things just made me super excited that it's like these things fail, and that's okay that they fail. We have ways to work around it and to embrace failure and to ensure that even if they fail, the system itself will be okay afterwards.
This is so okay. So for our less tech savvy people, basically, what is how would you describe what SLA is, Heather?
Oh, service level agreement. So for companies like Microsoft or AWS or Google Cloud, basically you're saying that of for whatever number of requests that you send to us, we guarantee that some percentage of them will succeed. And if we are wrong and you can prove it, then we will give you some money back. So it's the agreement that you have with people about how well your service will perform.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So basically, what you're saying is that like the SL, it can never be 100%, right? Like you can never have 100% reliability that something's gonna work. And so we see things working all the time, but it's actually made up of a bunch of little like not working things that somehow needs to like communicate with each other to make sure that as a whole we're still functioning. Is my understanding correct there?
Right, right.
That's so funny because when you said that, I was actually thinking, because I'm in the health and fitness space, and I was thinking this is like how our bodies work too. Like in our bodies, like like we think our body is functional. Well, I don't know. Maybe some people are like, nope, my body doesn't function. But for most of us, we're like, our body is functioning. But there's like little oopsies and accidents and things happening like in like all the time. Like there's mistakes happening all the time, and yet our body, like the cells need to communicate and the organs need to work in a way that somehow makes us think that, oh, we're still functioning.
Yeah, and I always think that the body is a really interesting system, but then again, I didn't get into biochemistry, so I'm not equipped to talk about it. But yeah, I'm sure that the same principles of like fault tolerance and like replication and this kind of thing are also at play in the human body.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And I wanted to ask, because one of the things that we talked about that I thought was super fascinating is that you mentioned that working in tech has taught you a lot about human relationships. I'm very curious, like, what are some of the ways that it's taught you about human relationships?
Yeah, there's let's see, there's kind of two angles. I guess I can talk about the relationships one, and then there's also sort of like the self improvement sort of angle.
Yeah, you also mentioned that like your biggest self improvement came from working in tech. That
Yeah,
fascinated me. I was like, wow, because I like at that time I was like reading so many books and like because I'm like really big into self improvement, and you were like my biggest tool for self improvement is working in tech, and I remember my business partner Richa said something similar, and I think that was like one of the first instances that made me think, wait, can I learn more by just paying attention to what's in front of me than reading books about it? And kind of blew my mind. But yes, I want please share yeah, how did it teach about human relationships? How did it like help you with self-improvement?
yeah. So I think the way I've been sort of thinking about this to myself is that work taught me how to commit to a relationship. Um, where like before my job, there was not much there that it's like I wanted it independently of like the way that the how I got it. Like for example, previously, if I had a relationship and things got a little rough, I'd just be like, well, perhaps we weren't meant to be, and therefore like time to like to peace out and move on. But for a job, it's like, well, it's not going to be perfect, and I really want this to work. So when things get rough, I'm going to dig in and figure out how I can work around this problem. And this is like a level of commitment that I actually hadn't really been devoting towards my relationships. And I got to this point where I was realizing like the amount of time and effort and energy I'm putting into maintaining relationships with like people at work that I don't even like is ridiculous compared to how much time and energy I'm putting into relationships with people that I claim to care and love and
Oh,
love and care for. So, um, yeah, it's this sort of this flip, and then sort of realizing that everything I've been doing at work was actually applicable, probably more applicable to my relationships with people I cared about. And I have found everything I've learned at work usually applies really, really nicely to other relationships.
Yeah. Can you like w- that's so interesting. Like I so what where basically what you said was like work put you basically in like the sandbox where it's like you have to make it work with other people. Um and did you feel like in your personal life like there wasn't necessarily that stake at the time?
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because like work is just like bullshit, right? Like it's so weird that I had this feeling about work that I was so committed to it, and I really wanted this project for my TPS reports or whatever to succeed. Whereas with relationships, it was more like I wanted to succeed, but I think I had this innate doubt that relationships were a permanent thing. So I think
Mm.
I always had this like escape hatch in the back of my head that like, okay, if things don't work out, then it's just because it wasn't going to work out anyways, and so I can leave. Whereas with work, I was like, no, I really want this job. I worked hard to get this job, and I really want this project to succeed. So yeah, I had this level of commitment to my job that I didn't have to people, which is kind of sad to say out loud. But I think like that experience sort of taught me that like something you hear people say a lot is that like love or commitment, it's not a feeling, it's an action. And I
Mhm.
really, I really got that from work, where realizing that the most important thing was me deciding that I wanted to stay and make it work. And then after that, like then after that, you can engineer around most problems. But the important thing is deciding that you want it to work, which
Yeah.
I'm doing in my personal life.
Yes, I like what you said here. The most important thing is to decide to make it work. And once you have that kind of commitment, like you've mentioned having to deal with like very difficult people at work and how you like figured out how to like lots of social skills and lots of like empathy skills like see it from their point of view and like all of that stuff that I had to learn through my personal relation. So it was really interesting. I think we have it like opposite kind of like my relationships taught me so much about how to function at work and yeah it's like your work taught you so much how to function in your personal relationships, but it's like the same thing, we're always like dealing with people I guess
Yeah, yeah.
in a way,
I had
right?
this epiphany where I was like, oh my gosh, like all relationships with people are the same, and just like the context is different. Which yeah, I had this,
Yeah.
and then that's when I realized that all the things I was doing at work, I should probably be doing like with like my friends and boyfriend too.
Yes, I'm glad that that's been that you got that takeaway. And what was it about any other self-improvement that you've that came from doing work?
Yeah, let's see. So, okay, once I had this realization that okay, you can kind of work your way past most problems if you just decide that you want to do it. Um, I think the other so okay, at this point it's like all right, I have this problem, I want to work around it, but then like the question is how. And so for this, I did go to self help books. The what is it? The Dale Carnegie like How to Win
How to
Friends, and that whatever that book. Yeah,
how to
it's
win friends and influence people?
yeah. That's actually a great book. I think it's a classic for a reason.
Mm,
But I think like before work, I had this like super juvenile feeling that if I really respect somebody, that I need to just like be true to myself, and like any attempt to modulate how I communicate in a way to other people is like being inauthentic and manipulative. And so I wouldn't do it. Whereas at work, I was like, I don't care about these people. I just want them to do what I say. So I'm just going to manipulate the hell out of them. So I was trying to figure out like how I can convince people. And some of the things that this book says, like one of the things is uh, before you start off any conflict, like try to give them a compliment on something genuine. So I was like, okay, like oh, this guy at work, such an asshole. And then just trying to think, okay, like and I realized that I actually really respected him. He's super smart, super passionate. And so I went to this conversation saying like, hey, I just want to start off with saying that I really enjoy working with you. Like I think you're really smart. I really respect where you're coming from. And it was like night and day. And then just like thinking about that afterwards, it was like I hadn't said anything that was false. Like I hadn't said anything that was true. And then like honestly, like why hadn't I told him before that I respected him and enjoyed working with him? And it just kind of made me realize that a lot of the advice, it's not about being like inauthentic. It's just about like choosing what parts that you say, and sometimes you can choose to say the nice things and maybe not say the mean things or phrase it in a different way, and it's oftentimes a lot more effective and
Yeah.
yeah, that way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that in my own life too. Yeah, it's not about I like what you said about it's not about being inauthentic. It's about choosing what parts, right? What parts to say at what points. Um and if I really like that what what was interesting is that like you did actually respect this guy. I think it was like you respected how like how dedicated he was, right? As well. Like you guys were both like really dedicated to like getting something through, right?
What we're
And
fighting is because we both cared a lot, like way too much
it
about
was
your
because
project and theirs.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it sounded like it was because you guys both cared so much that it was like like easy to bash heads. But then when you are guys realize, oh my god, wait, we have this in common. You and we're on the same team. We both care a lot. It sounded like that really changed. Didn't you
Yes,
say?
I did. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. Go. Keep going.
I was just saying that like and like this is one of the things I took into my personal life too, is that like realizing that I have a tendency when I'm in a conflict to just focus on like the conflict, and so like with boyfriends or friends now, I'm like, oh, just to start off, like, I really appreciate you and I love that you did this, but even just starting off with an affirmation of mutual love and respect and pointing out some good
Oh.
things, it really sets the tone for any discussion that you might have.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. It I remember you mentioning, I don't know if this is the same guy that you were talking about, this work person, but you said I remember you mentioning like another person who basically after you kind of like got on the same page, like they became one of your advocates, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think, well, like, something about the process at Microsoft, I feel, lends itself to more asshole behavior than, let's say, Facebook or Google. But yeah, there's like several people that I think, and actually, it also could be that the way I was acting was encouraging asshole behavior. So I don't
Uh-huh.
know, but yeah, definitely people that I previously had a hard time working with, I feel like with me putting some effort in made them a lot easier to work with, and yeah, we had a lot of good professional relationships from that.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? Like as I'm hearing you describe this, I'm thinking, yeah, like human relationships within the context of a system, like a business or even a family, or in a community, right? It's actually also like what did you call them? Like imperfect parts that like combine to make something work. A
Yeah,
reliable system
yeah,
from unreliable parts.
yeah.
That's what you said.
This is one of the my soapboxes that I get on a lot
Yeah.
at work, is insisting that humans are also part of the system, and therefore when we are designing our resilient, fault tolerant, and effective algorithms, we need to design for the human parts in it as well. Like, I've given
Oh,
this kind of presentation at like a lot of times over the years at work.
whoa, what does that mean? We have to, if we have to design for fault tolerant systems, we have to design for humans as well.
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple principles that people find very intuitive when talking about the computer parts of systems, but just seem to like fall apart when it comes to the human parts. So I think one concept is like the you don't want single points of failure in a system, because if you have a single point of failure, then if that thing goes down, then the entire system is hosed, and then you can't meet your SLA.
Yes.
But then people seem to not worry so much if there's single points of failure for humans. So like it's
Mm.
so common to have I don't know, some concept that only one person understands on the team, and then you call it like the bus factor or the vacation factor, where they can never go, otherwise no one will understand how this thing works.
Right. Can you explain what the bus factor is?
It's the, let's see, how sad you'd be if someone got hit by a bus. Actually, wait, that sounds terrible. It's the amount of knowledge that somebody has that if they were to leave your team.
Yeah, if they got hit by a bus, like how bad would it be for everybody
Yeah,
else, right?
yeah.
Like if only one person has like all the knowledge about how to like do something and they got hit by a bus, um the rest of the team might be a little screwed. Right?
And in the same way that you don't ever want your system to be screwed if one computer crashes, you also don't want your team to be screwed if one person leaves.
Yes.
Let's
Yeah.
see, what else? Scalability is one that I hammer on like all the time. Where, um, like if you have some system where your costs scale, I don't know, like exponentially with respect to the number of customers you have, like that is never going to work financially speaking. But a lot of times when I see things like taking on tech debt or on call load, people seem to not worry about systems that scale like linearly or worse with respect to number of customers. So like there's a lot of systems where it's like, okay, every time we have a customer, there's this manual stuff that we have to do. And then you get to the point where you have to just like hire more people to get more customers, which is obviously really inefficient. But engineers who spend forever obsessing about efficient algorithms just seem to completely forget that, people are part of these as well.
Yeah, yeah, you can't, yeah. Um, like how to scale like manual effort, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we humans like we only have so much energy. Like you can't wish for magic from people. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that you had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to go back to that, and I forgot earlier, was that you mentioned that that when you were thinking about or that when I had asked you earlier, like why didn't you consider coding as a career choice, you mentioned that you didn't really see any other women in there, so it kind of didn't even register to you. And then you said something about why this is why volunteering with kids really helps. Can you talk more about that? What do you mean by volunteering with kids?
I think let's see. I've done a bit of like TAing and volunteer work, and um, I feel like one of the benefits I can give is just existing and showing people that showing people that women exist in the field. And I think it's important for girls to see it as a possibility, but I also think it's important for little boys to see that it's a possibility, so that when they grow up and they meet women in tech, they don't act like idiots and act super shocked, which sometimes I've seen.
Oh, really? Like for to you?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure you must have seen this too. Like not so much now, but definitely when I was first getting started, like definitely had a lot of people being like, "Whoa, like what are you doing?" Or like, I think I had someone say like I was mentioning that I wanted to, I don't know, like BC or whatever, and they're like, "I'll probably just be a secretary." Just like,
Oh my god.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I hope it's better now than it was when we first joined tech, but like I did remember this was actually a lady, but I was in some corporate training thing, and afterward she we were in some workshop like breakout session together, and then she was like, "Oh, so do you work in HR or marketing?" And I was like, "No, I'm a software engineer." And then she goes, "Oh wow, you're very pretty for a software engineer." And
Oh,
I was like, "Hmm, I feel like that's meant to be a compliment." I was like, "I don't know how to react to that."
like, acknowledged.
I was like, "Acknowledged." Yeah, that pretty much. So yeah, no, I've definitely had that, like had my gender kind of called out to me in a way that was kind of like unexpected, because I didn't go in realizing I was different, to be quite honest. I usually don't pay attention to who the other people in there, but there were moments where it was just like called out to me, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I am one of the few," you know. um and I do hope like there's less cases of this now, but yeah, I think that for yeah, especially when you're very young, like to kind of just normalize this, right? Like, well, and I know that I actually have at least two friends who have teams and engineering teams, and they are really, really trying to figure out how to get more diversity. And it's very hard when you don't already have diversity. That's like it's one of those self-propelling problems. It's like if you don't already have diversity, it like makes it so much harder to build it in. And the bigger your team grows without it, the harder and it becomes.
Absolutely. Like I
Because
know
it's
for me, like
yeah.
if I'm looking at some team and I'm like, okay, there's no one here who is like, looks like me or what have you, then and I get an offer from a team that does have people look like me, I know which one I'm going to pick.
Yeah, actually, and you just recently, so like you left. I know you left. When you left Microsoft, and then you went to Facebook, and then when you went to Google, I remember you had like this whole like thing where you were trying to figure out what teams to join. You were a very hot commodity. I think a lot of people wanted you, and and you had like this like chart. It's like or like how cool is the project? How much do I like the team? And da da da. And I remember like the team really mattered to you, like the team culture when you were doing that evaluation.
Yeah, and then I ended up going for product coolness
Hmm.
after everything, and I think it's been too new yet to tell if that has shaken out. But yeah.
I want to, yeah, I'm curious to see how that pans out for you. Um, and while we're on that topic, I'm just I'm very curious. What made you decide to leave Azure after you were so into it? And I know you worked there for a while, so if it's just maybe it's just time or what else, and what made you decide to go pursue a different company?
Yeah, I definitely loved my team. I just is probably still my favorite team I've ever worked with. Favorite
Hmm.
people. I think I was becoming nervous at the time that the longer I stayed at Microsoft, the more I would only be able to work at Microsoft, because the ecosystem is pretty insulated from the rest of the industry,
Hmm.
and I wanted to get experience writing something other than .NET and working on things other than Windows computers.
So was it just like, oh, so it was like you felt that you wanted to do something different. You didn't want to keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think when I was applying to other jobs, I did have some offers from inside the company that looked really good, but I really, really wanted to get the chance to work outside of Microsoft, and that was a
Mhm.
big priority for me.
And how are you enjoying? I guess it's too soon to tell right now since it's still pretty new.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't at Facebook for very long, but I mean, already I have zero regrets. I definitely have gotten a lot of experience with other technologies, which I really enjoyed, and uh, like now I'm working pretty closely with the kernel in Linux, which is also super fun. I would say
Yeah.
so. Yeah, already I'm glad I did it.
Awesome. Is it still a distributed system or is something different now?
Uh, yes, although I'm for the first time I'm not quite as much in the systems part of it. I'm working more on one of the nodes in the system as opposed to the parts that communicate with one another.
Awesome. And how are you liking that?
I'm liking it a lot. Again,
Yeah.
it remains to be seen because I'm still relatively new, but I think already the fact that I have to be like reading documentation and digging through kernel code to understand my job is very thrilling.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, thrilling. I like that. I love Heather that you're like I don't really know you're very I feel like you're very exploratory. I don't know if exploratory is the right word or maybe it's just like newness tolerant. Like it's like you're very tolerant to things you don't know yet and you're just like this is exciting, let's figure this out. Like I've met so many, especially women and especially women in tech, I feel, who it's there's a lot of imposter syndrome and I know you have it too, but it's like it's like the imposter syndrome, like oh I don't know if I can do this. um and so I'm very like I want to try to get better, but I'm really anxious about it. And I feel because I feel like for you, it's like yeah, I'm not sure if I'm really good at this, but it's going to be really exciting to figure out. Can
Actually,
you
the
speak to
interesting
that?
thing is, I don't
Am
know if
I?
I really have imposter syndrome. Actually,
You don't?
no,
Oh,
I don't think I do. I did when I was younger, but I don't think I do anymore, which is it
what
seems to be
happened
a
to it?
rarity to say. Yeah, um, I think well, I mean, I had it pretty bad because like I didn't have a degree, and especially starting out, if people are like, oh, like people talk a lot about like, oh, what school did you go to? And I was like, UW. They're like, yeah, the computer science department there is great. I'm like, oh, it is, but I wouldn't know. And then it definitely had a chip on my shoulder about it, but I think getting so I went back to school after I was working at Azure to get my computer science master's at UW, and I think the whole process, not like having a degree meant anything to me, but just having to refocus on learning, and why I was getting the degree really helped me out because I was sitting here thinking like, okay, like, am I smart enough to make it in this field? Am I not? And then kind of going back to the whole like commitment is deciding, and I'm just like, well, does it really matter because I want to make it work and I really love
Oh,
what I do, and that makes me belong here. And I think part of it was also acknowledging that one of the reasons why I felt insecure was because I did have like, massive gaps in my knowledge. There were things that I was really ignorant about, and
yeah.
accepting that I was ignorant and that it's like, okay, what am I going to do about it? And realizing that if I don't know, I say I don't know, and then I figure it out, and it sort of like gives me this baseline confidence that like that yeah that I belong here, and that even if I do things that are dumb, at least I can try to be less dumb tomorrow.
even if I even if I do things that are dumb, I can be less dumb tomorrow. I love that. Sorry, I'm typing this up because I love that quote so much. um and okay, I love that the whole what my takeaways basically is because I still have imposter syndrome to this day, so I can learn this from you. It's like, there's this voice, right? That's like, oh, can I do it? Can I not do it? And then I think it's like the Heather voice that basically overshadows them all is the one that says, well, does it matter? Like, do you want to do this? And then like commit to deciding to do it, right?
Yeah, and
And
I think part along with that is also, I think, something else that I'd love to talk about with achievement systems is embracing failure. Just like thinking, okay, like maybe I like why am I feeling so insecure? And then either it's because of some like bullshit that doesn't matter and therefore I ignore it, or it's because I truly don't know what I'm talking about. In which case, accept that I don't know this thing and then try to learn it. I think it like deciding that is really what makes me feel more secure, is
yeah,
being able to accept that there are things that I don't know and it's okay that I don't know them.
yeah, I think for a lot of people, like the accepting that that I don't know is really hard for them. But I think, um, I you know, I mean, from your experience, you've asked so many questions when you don't know, right? And what has been your experience from, doing all of that? Like,
Yeah,
has anything bad happened to you,
it's really lucky that I came into the field the way I did, because
Yeah.
again, like when I started off, I knew nothing. Like I didn't even know like what I was like. What are computers really? Um, and so like I started off that first job. Like part of why it was so fun is because I just like asked questions because everybody knew that I got hired because I played Halo a lot. Like everyone knew that I didn't know anything about computers or coding. So it
Yeah.
kind of made me free to just ask a ton of questions that people might have considered to be stupid or bad. But and it just taught me that asking dumb questions, like usually like kids ask really great questions because it's these like fundamental why questions are the ones that are actually like damn like
Yeah.
what are computers like, so
No, that's so true. My niece, my toddler niece is like teaching me how to ask questions. Like just by observing her, right? Because she's like at that stage where she's just asking questions about everything. And I'm like, yeah, that is a good question.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
why are we doing this? Like, why, like, what are you doing, daddy? And then like, well, why, why not do this instead? And I'm like, yeah, these are very good questions given your premises. And I find that I find that you said something that reminded me of this, which is like, well, if I'm like, it's almost like you came in there accepting that, you know what, okay, so I guess I'll just be the dumb one here, and then like it's like almost like once you accept that, like if you don't let it like be attached to like your value as a person, right? You're like, yep, I guess I'm just the dumb one in the room.
right,
It
right.
makes it so much easier to just ask the dumb questions because you're basically like, yep, it is what it is. And then at least I always found that through the dumb questions, that's how you like, you know, not feel so dumb. Like as you said, okay, I'll feel less dumb tomorrow.
Yeah, like the only way I'm ever gonna stop being dumb is by asking questions about the things I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. Love it. Awesome. Um so I wanted to I think like this has been very I think useful, especially for people like struggling with imposter syndrome, struggling with like not knowing how to like get from one point to another, especially when they seem really different. And I think like one of the things that I've learned from your story is really just that even if you want to do something like completely different, right? Like, okay, maybe you're a religious major and then you're like, I kind of want to try this tech thing. Like nothing's stopping you from doing that. And I think at least there's been quite a few conversations I've had where people wanted to, when it comes to a career change or something like that, they really want to figure out like how can I make what I've already have work in a different way, but their words and their behaviors indicate that they want to do something completely different. And so, um, I think this helps give people like permission to like do something completely different, um, if you want to. But I think one of the thing is be I don't know if the word is strategic or incremental. It's like be incremental about it. Like don't. don't ask for magic, but like,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
the word that they use at work is what, like, don't try to boil the ocean.
don't try to boil the
Yeah,
ocean.
yeah,
Yes, there
yeah.
we go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of small incremental steps,
Yes.
both at work and in personal life, and in actually everything I do. It's like incremental progress.
Awesome. Great. So I want to basically kind of just end this in this call by just asking, like, having people get to know you as with some kind of questions about you, and if you actually let's do this one. I don't know if I already sent you this question or not. But what do you wish more people would know about you that you don't often get to share or get asked?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I make a lot of lists, and I always wish people were like, Heather, can you name the top five, whatever, or but only about certain topics. So perhaps that's not nothing good to open up to you asking me.
What kind of lists?
Like I don't know, like favorite like science fiction books or like dystopias or
Uh,
things like this. I don't know. I should have prepared for this one.
no, that's totally fine.
I do
Are
wish
you
people
saying
ask
you
me more
wish?
about distributed systems at parties. Like,
Do,
I wish that I didn't have to just harass people about it.
yeah, it's such a like I don't like it's not a topic that really comes up at parties, but when you talk about it, it's like, yep,
When
she
I'm
is
at parties,
really
it
into
comes
this.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, you bring it up. Yeah. Um, oh, I'm also very curious because we didn't get the I actually wanted to ask you this the last time we met in person, but I forgot. But I know that like we every year like we do like our little like yearly planning thing like or sorry, I mean like we separately do it. Like, I do my yearly planning like, oh, here's my vision and what I want to go well, and then like you do your thing. Like what is that for you? Like you don't have to like share what your actual vision is, but like what's that process like for you and what does that kind of look like?
Okay, I'm pulling up my notes and looking at what I said for this year.
Ooh.
Let's see. So yeah, I mean, every year around January time, I kind of summarize the previous year, and then I look at what I said I wanted to do and see if I actually did it. Oftentimes, no, and then think about things that I want to do the next year. Um, I try to pick one or two things to focus on because I feel like I have this tendency to just like queue up massive things like lists to do, and then you sort of just get paralysis and don't do any of them. So yeah, I like to pick one or two items. So let's see. For 2022, I want to deepen relationships. I said, um, and I wish to be able to get better at electronics and perhaps rank up in StarCraft and do a pull up. Those are my goals.
I love it. I love it. Um,
What about you? What are your goals
I
for
love
this year?
this. For my goal this year, one of the biggest, well, relationship as well. I want to get married, which I will, and I would like to start a family. So maybe try to get pregnant this year. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, so that would be like one goal. And then I have some goals for my business coach Viva, and also very important for not for this year, but something I just been really wanting. It's like I want a creative outlet, and this is actually it. This podcast is that creative outlet. So I'm like trying to like I'm manifesting it right now. But I want like I've always wanted like a creative outlet where I can just kind of like talk about the questions that I want to explore, right? And so like questions around like how we learn, how we discover what we want, and human relationships and psyche, like that. Those kinds of conversations are conversations that I really like to have, and I really want to like hear other people's stories around that too, and kind of share them. And so this is that part of what I'm doing. And then what else? I would like to the health. Build in more rest into my days, so that I can live in what I call effortless alignment. So I especially when I have like a lot of things to do, usually because I think I can take on more than I can handle. I end up being putting myself into survival mode, and then end up kind of like doing things just to like get them checked off the box, right? And then I end up basically getting a little extended, but also like I stop doing what I want from a place of like joy, and more from a place of like I have to finish this thing because I said I was going to finish this thing, and that's like never felt good to me. And if I can like eliminate that, I feel like I just be like set, like I'd be like zen and just like living in flow, as they say. So that's kind of like my goal, my goals for this
It
year.
sounds like a lot of noble goals. The podcasting is really, really cool. I love what you said about like there's conversations and topics that you enjoy having and exploring, and this is a really great way to have these conversations. I really like that idea.
Thank you, and I'm so glad you're sharing in this with me, and that you're like you volunteered to like help help explore that with me. Um, awesome. Oh, one more question: if you could travel back in time to any previous period of your life and give yourself a piece of advice, when would that be, and what would you say?
Ooh, well, I mentioned before that I feel like I ended up here with by a crazy stream of coincidences. So I feel like if I went back in time, I would just like change everything, and I'd probably end up someplace different. So I probably
Ah,
wouldn't risk going back in time. But if it's like the time travel theory where you're branching off a new existence and it's like that Heather's the one that's gonna get screwed,
yeah.
what I would do is let's see. I don't. To be honest, like I do wish I had started programming earlier. Like it
Mm,
would have been nice to have to gotten my degree in computer science. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I probably would have said like probably don't go for religion, try that, and maybe I would have told myself to like buy Bitcoin or something early on. But that aside, yeah, I don't know. I think there's not much I would tell myself. I think I had a lot of people in my life who were probably doing a much better job of giving me words of encouragement than
Yeah.
I could. So I think I don't think I would change that.
Well, it sounded like a lot of people in your life really actually did give you words of encouragement
Yeah,
and advice. So
I
it's
was
like
super lucky to have them.
you
Yeah.
may not have even needed future Heather to come back.
Yeah,
You
I
had
feel
like
like
friends
if I went
basically
back,
saying,
yeah, if I went back, I would be like, I don't know, Heather, like programming's pretty hard. Like maybe you don't want to do this, but yeah, like definitely the friends I had then were just like, super gung ho in a way that I think I'm more cautious and conservative. That I don't think I'd be able to be that good of a cheerleader.
yes, yeah. That's and you said like, yeah, like these things all happen through a series of coincidences. But what I'm hearing when I'm hearing your story is that they are coincidences, but you kind of put yourself in those situations where they could happen. Um, and so I always like think about this, like how much of what happens to us is like luck versus like how much of it did we actually have control over. I like part of one of the questions I kind of like am interested in asking is like how much can we engineer serendipity. And I um like one way like that I've been toying with this idea is that we, you know, first of all are very open with the people around us as to like what we're interested and what we're into doing. And like like I don't know if you just talk about distributed system with like everybody you meet, or if you like try to hold yourself back, or not. But I reckon if like you're not doing distributed systems and you're just talking to a bunch of people about distributed systems, at some point somebody's gonna be like, "Hey Heather, you should probably do distributed systems," and like you know want me to help or like point you in the right direction, right? In your case I think it was like playing Halo, right? But which is like the same thing. It's like, yeah, people notice these things. Yeah, so I guess like I've always been fascinated with the idea of like, yeah, how much can we like engineer serendipity. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have thoughts on
I
that.
definitely think so. I think like people will talk about, oh, you only find things if you're not looking for them, or things just happen this way. But I think I don't know. In my opinion, like you have to be hustling and create situations where a lot of things can happen to you, and then okay, chance can happen. But
Right.
if you're in a situation where only like one or two random things happen to you in a year, then like chances are not very high that they're going to be the things that lead you to a new path.
Right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Awesome. Cool. I think that's yeah, those are all my questions, and I this has been a very a very I don't know, like I wanted, for some reason the word that came up was giggly for some reason. I don't know. I just feel like I laughed a lot during this conversation.
Yeah, I always really enjoy talking to you. I think the
Yay.
conversations we have are always the kind of analytical conversations that I always enjoy having myself. So yeah,
Yeah,
always.
it's like analytical and also like gets like philosophical sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely like one of the few people who will allow me to be like I want to delve into like the why of this and like overanalyze the hell and everything. Like I really appreciate that about you.
Aw, thank you. Excellent. What are your oh, is there I'm just curious, like anything like you're currently exploring right now, or like what's next for you, I guess, if anything.
In terms of life, I suppose, yeah, just trying to yeah, deepen relationships. Because I think at work I don't really do deep relationships, so this might be something I have to learn on my own away from work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, I'm trying to figure out how electricity works. It's been a slow slog. We shall see
Awesome.
how it goes.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Thank you, Heather. And where can our audience find you?
Who? Well, I've been saying I want to make a blog about like with the title "Computers Made Me Human," but I haven't done it yet. So
Ah, I
if
love
anyone can
that.
find me there. But I don't actually know. I suppose LinkedIn maybe.
Awesome. Yeah. By the way, I love the idea. I love the title "Computers Made Me Human." No rush, but if and when you have that blog, I'd be happy to link it in our show notes below.
Yes, definitely. Hopefully, this will be the kick I need to actually set it up.
Yay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Bye. If you enjoyed this discussion, please like this video and subscribe. And check out my show notes below for where to find my podcasts, my weekly newsletter, work with me one on one, and just how to reach me in general. Thank you, and I appreciate you.